Hello, Elder Smith here. Today I'm going to continue on where I left off, starting with the sixth chapter of Genesis. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. And there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, that they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Now, there's a lot of different beliefs as to what it means by the sons of God and the daughters of men. Um, if you want to know what my thoughts are on that subject, I have a video discussing that very detail right there in a video called "The Truth About the Nephilim." So after this video, if you are interested, you can go and see that video, and you'll know what my take on that is. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man, whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. And Noah walked with God. And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, The end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark of gopher wood, rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it of. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, and the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. A window shalt thou make to the ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above, and the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof. With lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. And behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth, to destroy all flesh therein, wherein there is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. And of every living thing, of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark, to keep them alive. With thee they shall be male and female. of fowls of after their kind, and of cattle after their kind, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. 2 of every sort shall come in unto thee to keep them alive. And take thou unto thee all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for food for thee and for them. Thus did Noah according to all that God commanded him, so did he. And God said unto Noah, Come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. And every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens, male and his female, and of the beasts that are not clean, by 2, male and his female, and of fowls also of the air by sevens, male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of the earth. For yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and every living substance that I have made will I destroy from off the face of the earth. And Noah did according to all that the Lord commanded him. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth. And Noah went in, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him, into the ark, because of the waters of the flood, of clean beasts, and of beasts that are not clean, and of fowls, and of everything that creepeth upon the earth, went in 2 and 2 unto Noah into the ark, male and the female, as God had commanded Noah. And it came to pass after 7 days that the flood of waters were upon the earth, in the 600th year of Noah's life, and in the 2nd month, in the 17th day of the month, that the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were open. Now, the thing about this is, my dad has a theory on this particular scripture right here. He says that he noticed that the scriptures not only said that it rained, that water was coming from above, but it says that the fountains of the great deep were broken up, which he believes, and I agree with him on this one, that the water came from the ground below as well as from above. And he believes that this may have played a role with something that he believes may have in fact happened. There are people out there that believe that the continents were once merged together into one supercontinent, one landmass, and over the course of time split apart and drifted each continent to where it is today. He believes that the fountains of the great deep breaking up may have played a role in the continent splitting apart, that it actually helps speed up the process. Now, I don't know if he's right on this or not, and nor does he know. And he would never state it as fact, just a theory. And I believe he may be onto something, though neither him nor I would state it as fact. I feel the need to bring this up to all of you to stir your minds up and give you all a chance to hear it and see what you think on the matter. Is Dad on to something? But rather if you agree with it or not, either or is fine. But it is still an interesting theory to point out to all of you. And the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And the selfsame day entered Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them, into the ark. They and every beast after his kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, and every bird of every sort. And they went in unto Noah into the ark, 2 and 2 of all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. And they that went in male and female of all flesh, as God had commanded him. And the Lord shut him in, and the flood was 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased and bare up the ark, and it was lift up above the earth. And the waters prevailed and were increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark went upon the face of the waters, and the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered, and all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl, and of cattle, and of beast, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. And every man in whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land, died, and every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle, and creeping things, and the fowl of the heaven. They were destroyed from the face of the earth. And Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. And God remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And God made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuaged, and the fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained, and the waters returned from off the earth continually. And after the end of the 150 days, the waters were abated. And the ark rested in the 7th month, and the 17th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat. And the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. And the 10th month of the first day of the month were the tops of the mountains seen. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made. And he sent forth a raven, which went forth to and fro until the waters were dried up from off the face of the earth. And also he sent forth a dove, from which to see if the waters were abated from off the face of the ground. Now, to me, this is interesting. When you hear the story of Noah being told and quoted, we all know so well of the dove he sent forth from the ark, but know so little of the raven. The raven is hardly ever quoted. Now, what is the significance of the raven? Why did he send 2 birds out? I believe it's because everything God does has a symbolic meaning to it. You see, while I do believe it literally happened, I do believe there was a literal flood, that the ark is literal, and the birds he sent forth out of the ark were literal. I believe that God had a spiritual meaning hidden within these events. I believe the birds represent us, the people in this world. The ravens represent those who do not have God in their life, and the doves represent those that do have God in their life. Now, how is this? It's because, well, to understand that, you got to understand how ravens work. It said that the raven never returned to the ark. It just said that it went to and fro in the earth until the waters were dried up from the ground. Well, how does that work exactly? How was the raven able to find rest to where it could land? It didn't just fly continuously until nonstop until the ground was dried up. It had to do something to find rest. I did some studying on ravens, and ravens are not very picky about what they eat. They'll eat just about anything, and it doesn't have to be alive for it to eat. It'll sometimes, when it comes down to it, will even feed on carcasses. That's not the only thing they'll eat. They're not like vultures, but when it comes down to it, they will resort to eating things that have been dead for a while. So, and bear in mind, the flood was used to destroy life from off the earth. So there's not a doubt in my mind that the raven found carcasses floating in the waters. No doubt it landed and perched for a while on these carcasses while it fed off of them. How does this represent people that don't have God in their lives? It's because when you don't have God in your life, you go to and fro into the earth, and you're willing to settle for even the most unclean places as your home. And I don't mean necessarily physically unclean, but spiritually unclean. People will find satisfaction in some of the most sinful places, and to them they go along the old saying that home is where you hang your hat, home is where you choose for it to be. They'll settle for anywhere, because to them they feel like anywhere is their home here on the earth. Now, how is it that people that have God in their lives any different from people that live life like that? Here's how they're different. The answer is the story that concerns the dove. He also sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters were abated from off the face of the ground. But the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot, and she returned unto him into the ark, for the waters were on the face of the earth, of the whole earth. And he put forth his hand and took her and pulled her unto him into the ark. You see, in a lot of ways in this case, I find the ark represents the church, because the ark is in the world at the time of the flood of the waters. And the ark is a place that Noah and his family and the beast live in at this time. Now, when he sent forth the raven made its home wherever, and it had to settle for the carcasses of the world, the unclean things, and it was okay with it. Otherwise, it would have returned to Noah. But as for the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot. To me, the ark represents the church in the world. We go to the church to worship God, and not only to worship God, but to worship him and fellowship with one another. The church is our home away from home, for heaven is our eternal home. None of the places, not even the very house you live in, is your true home, for it's only a temporary place. We are called, according to the Bible, we are sojourners in the world. Sojourners meaning we journey, we are continuously traveling, even when we sometimes see our houses as our homes in our lifetime, even if it's a home that you live in throughout your whole life. Once your life ceases, you no longer live there. You're taken home to your true home, which is heaven. Or when Christ returns, once again, you are taken to your true home. Your house is not your true home, for it's not your eternal home. You're not living there for eternity. You're just staying there for a while. Heaven is your true home. And church, that's your home away from home. For it is a kingdom that's in the world, but not of the world, as the scripture says. So when we leave and we go out there, we go out into the world because we have to. We need to go out into the world to work and to survive. But even when you have a house to live in, you do not find rest for the sole of your foot, because there's no place in the world that's like the church, the true church of Christ, which he has set up on the earth. And we, as the dove, always return to the church where we can worship God and be in fellowship with one another. And he stayed yet another 7 days. Again, he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came in to him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off. So Noah knew that the waters were abated from off the earth. So this second time, the dove returned again, but this time had an olive leaf in her mouth. What does that mean? What's that supposed to represent? I believe it represents the blessings that God gives us. When we return to the church, we return with blessings that he has given us, whether if it's the talents or the callings he has given us, the desire, the joy. The fact that when we leave church and we continue to follow the ways of God and we always return with a little more than what we had before. And he stayed yet another 7 days, and sent forth the dove, which returned not again unto him any more. Now to me, what this represents is the second coming of Christ. For when Christ returns, he will deliver up the kingdom unto his Father. That's the time when we leave one last time, but we will not return, because once we leave, we're brought into the eternal kingdom of God, our true eternal home. And that's the only reason why we will never return to the kingdom that's here on the earth, because that kingdom will be taken up and us with it. And it came to pass in the 601st year in the first month of the first day of the month, the waters were dried up from off the earth, and Noah removed the covering of the ark, and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. And in the second month, on the 27th day of the month, was the earth dried. And God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife and thy sons wives with thee, and bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth. And Noah went forth, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him, and every beast that creeping thing, and every fowl, and whatsoever creepeth upon the earth, after their kind, went forth out of the ark. And Noah builded an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast, and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And the Lord smelled a sweet savor. And the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done. Now, before I continue what God says, there's two things I'd like to say. One I'd like to say before I finish this chapter, and one afterward. But the first thing is if you've seen my previous videos, you'll notice that I've talked about that there are those who do believe in God, those that don't believe in God, which we know very well. But then there are those who do believe in God, but don't believe in the Bible and what it says, at least not 100%. I actually met another person like that. I was under the impression that he may believe in God, but doesn't quite believe everything the Bible said. And he asked me if I did agree with what the scriptures say 100%. And I said, yes. And he says, so in the time of Noah and the flood, you believe that God somehow caused a penguin or a couple of penguins to leave the Arctic and find their way to Noah and the ark? And I said, yes. And he looked at me like I was very foolish. Now, I don't know what your thoughts are, but to me, if God has the power to create the endless universe and all the galaxies, create heaven, create the earth, create even light, just by speaking it into existence, create life in the earth, and make man, and do all these miraculous things that go beyond our comprehension, why would leading two animals from a different part of the world to Noah be harder? To me, with all the things I just listed off, those things would seem harder than for God to do. And nothing's too hard for God. Nothing's harder. I mean in the sense of the power he puts forth into it. In that sense, nothing is impossible for God. There's not that God looks upon one thing and another and thinks to himself, well, this is more difficult. Nothing is difficult for God. He can do any and all things, and he does them according to his pleasure. But what I'm saying is if he can create all these things out of nothing by speaking them into existence and give life to everything and give order to everything, why then would leading a couple of animals from a different part of the world to Noah be any harder? Or why would it be impossible for him? If God can do the other things with ease, he can do that with ease. Now, God finishes. I kind of stopped in what he was saying, but here's what he says. While the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. This brings up one final subject I would just like to cover over really quick. Today, and this has been going on for decades now, you hear people talk about global warming. Well, they changed it recently and call it climate change, but and truth be told, they still mean the same thing. You can change the name of something, but it doesn't change the subject itself. They believe in man-made global warming or climate change, whichever you prefer it. I don't believe God gave man that kind of power over the earth. First of all, if man has that kind of power to alter how the climate works around the world, then God could not have said what he said in this final verse. He says, while the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, hot and cold, and summer and winter shall not cease. If you believe in global warming and that man's causing it, then we have the power to make cold and winter cease. But we don't have that kind of power. We don't. God said, while the earth remaineth, the earth will remain until the day Christ returns, and God himself destroys all things, leaving only heaven in existence. He isn't going to just destroy the earth. He's going to destroy the endless universe and make everything as though he had never created it before. And with heaven being the only thing left, and all of us gathered together therein. So, this final verse, the 22nd verse in Genesis chapter 8, is evidence that man-made global warming or man-made climate change does not exist. It is not a thing. Does global warming or climate change exist? Naturally, yeah. There are times when the world heats up, but then there are times later on when it cools back down. It fluctuates. It has its ups and downs. It fluctuates continuously. And one thing that makes me shake my head is people try to use the Ice Age to prove that man-made global warming is a thing. But here's the thing that I have to say to that. The Ice Age was done as a result of natural global climate change, not man-made. And they'll even admit to that. And that's where I shake my head, because they're trying to use natural occurring climate change that caused the Ice Age to prove that man-made climate change is a thing. That doesn't add up. And I'm sorry, but while I know some people that think I'm foolish for believing this, but I still believe it in my heart of hearts. You can fill this entire room with scientists, and they can give all the explanations proving that man-made climate change is a thing, and their words may even make sense. But God, they do not, all of them combined together do not overpower God and his words. In fact, God alone overpowers their words. They can give the world's longest speech all they want, proving that man-made climate change is a thing. Me, all I need is what God says in Genesis chapter 8, verse 22. And that's not a long speech. God just says, while the earth remaineth, neither seed time nor harvest, nor summer nor winter, nor hot and cold shall cease. Everything shall continue as it's supposed to until the day Christ returns, and that's good enough for me. That's all I feel led to speak about for today. Remember to study the Show Thyself Approved, put on the whole armor of God, and fight the good fight.